Brand identity design is with no doubt one of the less occupied fields in the Kenyan market. Now listen, I'm not talking about graphic design. In Kenya, everybody's a graphic designer. Hata mama mboga today anaweza decide aunde flyer yake mwenyewe. So, I'm talking about brand identity designs. Designing how the brand feels, how the client views the brand, how the brand communicates to the clients, and all that. Not just designing the logos and the flyers. And if you're a beginner looking forward to jumping into this creative industry in Kenya, I'll advise for you to go for the brand identity part. The reason being, to be honest, there's really a need for brand identity designers in this Kenyan market. There are so many shitty brands out here whereby the brand just appears the way they think it is good, just appearing with a logo of blue color today, tomorrow it is yellow, the other day it is green, like with no consistency. They don't know how they should communicate to their clients. They don't know even their target audience. They don't know how they can attain their target audience. They don't know how they can attract their target audience. And that is where you come in as a brand designer. The second reason is, as a brand designer, you tend to bring more value and you tend to appear as an investment and a long-term investment in the brand. The reason being, you don't just design a flyer that announces September offers and it is over after September. No, you design a brand identity that will guide them from the start of that designing to the end. That is, in general, everything. Their marketing, how they communicate, how they appear visually, how they design their flyers, how they design their banners, how their logo should be used, how their colors should be used, how to stay consistent. You design all that. So you appear more as a long-term asset than just a designer who designs once and it is all done. They remember you for the longest time. Now, the main two things that you're going to learn after this video is what really is a brand identity design. What is a brand identity design? Really, what is it? It is not just designing logos. And then number two is my creative process. I'll take you step by step how I normally attain my brand identities from the first step to the last step. And this will guide you if you're a beginner or you're a brand designer and you're still staggering in terms of the process. So make sure to stick right to the end of the video. There are various definitions of brand identity design. So many definitions out here. But one of the brand identity design definitions that caught my eye, and I always keep it with me, is brand identity design. It is designing how clients view the brand. That is how the clients feel about this brand. Do you feel this brand to be more premium? Do you feel this brand as more welcoming? Do you feel this brand as more childish? Do you feel this brand as more millennial, or do you feel this brand as more Gen Z? That is what you do, and that is what I can define brand identity as: designing how the client views and feels about the brand. And this cannot just be attained by colors alone. It is a combination of various things. Making sure your mission is clear, who you are is clear, your visions, your identity, your values, and everything else. Making sure that they are straight to the point. And all that is your task as a brand designer. Now, that out of the way, we want now to see how you can attain a successful brand identity design project, and from start to the end, whereby you deliver the professionally designed brand identity to your client and making sure that they are completely satisfied. Now, we are going to see a step-by-step process that I took to acquire this brand identity design, and I normally use this process in all my brand identity projects. Every project, okay? So before you go into the process, who is Brain Consulting Limited? Brain Consulting Limited is a Kenyan-based brand that is offering various engineering services and consulting. So Brain Consulting has been in operation for a number of years right now. They started their brand in 2015 and then they became incorporated in 2019. So they've been in the market for a number of years right now. And to be honest, that time they've been in the market, they didn't really have a good identity to represent who they are. Like, to really show who they are as a brand and what they provide and what they stand for in general. And that is why now we come in. This one was not a fresh brand identity design. It was a rebrand from their previous identity, which, to be honest, didn't really represent who they are. Now, the first process that I normally take is discovery calls. This one is to ensure that I have understand who the client is, okay? I have understand what their brand does. We discuss about the project that they want to be done and the deliverables that they are expecting. Don't always ignore that just because the client has chosen your brand identity package, they know the exact thing that they should receive. They might be at some point expecting something more than what you're offering. So always to make sure that you have asked what deliverables do they want before even mentioning the price. The other thing is, on this call, I get to explain to them the process that I'll be taking to acquire that brand identity design. Also on this call, I get to ask them about their budget. What budget are they having for the project? If they don't have the budget, now I can give out my prices. And there we agree, okay? On that call, we agree, okay, this is the price that we're going to work with, and we are good to go. Now, to be honest, si ati yote huwa inaingiana. Saa zingine you mentioned the price and they're just like, oh, okay, that is a very high price, or we can't work with that particular price. We're expecting something lower. So, si zote zinaingiana. Sometimes it comes, sometimes it goes. And that is okay. You have no problem. It is just something normal. Now it was time for the onboarding process. What I mean by onboarding is, on this onboarding stage, this is where I send out the contract that should be signed. On this contract, I have listed the number of things that they'll be receiving as deliverables for the project, so that we're just clear. Number two, I have documented my process from step A to the last process of handing over the brand to the client. So each and every single stage, they are clear about it. The other thing is, I have documented my terms and conditions of working, like the 50% payment, like all those. I have documented it on my contract form. The other thing that I normally document on the contract form is the date that they have booked, because I normally work with bookings. The client don't normally just like walk into me and then we start the project directly. No, I normally work with bookings. So I indicate the date that they have booked. And then the other thing I normally indicate is the budget that we have already discussed. That is the investment that they're going to make for that particular brand identity design project. The second thing that I normally do on the onboarding process is now sending over the invoice, because until the client has paid the 50% deposit, he can change the mind anytime. So I normally send out the contract and the invoice. The invoice normally indicates the amount that is supposed to be spent or is supposed to be invested for the project. Now, after the client has signed the contract and then they have paid the 50% deposit, now you know you have a client. And to be honest, most of these clients who does all of these without any problem, you can ascertain that you are having a good client who will not give you 280 revisions and all that kind of disturbance. And to make something clear, I normally make it clear that it is 50% deposit, nothing less. 50% deposit, and you know that the client has committed themselves for this particular project. Now, after you have just onboarded the client, and I'm sure that now I'm having a client and the project should start on, for example, on 5th of next month, now you're ready to go to the next step. It is time now to send out the questionnaire. This questionnaire is normally having, for me, I have 20 critical questions. The moment they have answered these particular 20 questions, I am sure that I'm having enough information that will guide me in the brand identity design project. These questions, there are so many, I'll have to create another video that will go deeper into the question that I normally ask my clients. But for this video, I'll just be outlining the process that I normally take that you can copy and use it yourself. So after sending out the questionnaire, I wait for the client to answer the questionnaire. The next step normally depends on how the questionnaire has been answered. If the client had a problem answering some question and they need some clarity on it, we normally organized a virtual meeting before the project starts, so that we're just clear on everything. We make sure that you're on the same page and you have clarified every single part of it. Now, after the client has answered the question and then we have organized the virtual meeting if it is necessary, the next step is the first research. Now, on this particular part, what we normally do is I get to dive deeper into the answers that were given on the brand questionnaire. Okay, that questionnaire is very much important because it gives you the exact details of what the brand is all about, what the missions of the client is, what the visions of that particular brand is, who they are, and all that. So I get to dive deeper into the questions, into the answers that the client had given me on the questionnaire. After diving deeper into it, I get to research that industry. For brand consulting, it was the engineering industry, and I had to dive deeper and check other brands doing the same thing. For this particular brand, they wanted their standards not to be just the Kenyan standards, they wanted the global standards. I had to go and look for the global industry and check what they are doing wrong, what they're doing correct, what we should emulate, what we should not emulate, and all that. So making sure that you have understood about the industry itself, understand about the brand itself, and be aware of everything about that particular brand. After you have done your research and you're very sure that you have understood about the brand, what I did next was creating now the brand strategy for brain consulting. The brand strategy is not just a number of words written down. No, this strategy will guide us. First of all, the brand project itself, the brand identity project, will be guided by this strategy that we're going to create. Number two, the brand strategy will guide the brand in general onwards. From the time that we have rebranded them, going onwards, this brand strategy will guide them in how they communicate, how they put themselves out there, how they should be viewed as by their clients, and all that. This brand strategy will guide them on that. Now, on the brand strategy, we have a number of things that we normally write down. Number one is our identity. On the identity part, this is what we are able to come up with for the brand consulting. Now, this is not just something that you come up with by yourself. It comes from the answers given on the questionnaire. Number two, from the research that you have done. So you don't just come up with something and then you formulate and then now it is the identity for the brand. No. And then for the second part, we are having our story. On the story part, we make sure that we covered how their brand started, what was really the first motivator for it. It helps the brand connect with their clients. Next item on the brand strategy was the brand positioning. Now, on the brand positioning part is stating clearly what makes them unique in the industry. Now, the next item on the brand strategy is our values. When it comes to our values, this is what the brand stands for. For example, the innovation and all that. This is what the brand stands for. And these were the values for brand consulting. Now, after we have defined the brand values and all that, the next thing is the brand personality. When it comes to the brand personality, basically what we mean by brand personality is if the brand was a human being, what will be its characteristic? We are building a brand and not a business. A business sells products and services. A brand sells emotion, transformations, and all that. So we are building a brand whereby we need to define those characteristics that will be interacting with their clients. And that is what we refer to as the brand personality. The brand tone. Now, when it comes to the brand tone, is basically how should the brand communicate to their clients? Not how their clients should communicate to the brand. No, how should the brand communicate to their customers and clients? Should it be professionally or should it be more friendly? Should it be more sophisticated and all that? That is what we refer to as the brand tone. Now, after we had created the brand tone, the next thing on the brand strategy was now the target audience. We get to define clearly who in particular is brand consulting aiming. Because you can't just be there in the market as a brand and then you're just like selling to everybody. You will sell to no one. So you must be having a particular target audience so that you can tailor yourself to meet that particular target audience, okay? To communicate to that particular target audience that you're having in mind. Now, the next item on the brand strategy, our mission. Now, when it comes to our mission, it is basically why does brand consulting exist? What is your purpose? Okay, as a brand, they should be having a purpose. A brand should be having a purpose whereby we exist because we want to accomplish A, B, C, and D. They should always have a purpose. And that is what we mean by the mission of the brand. Now, the last item on the brand strategy is our vision. When it comes to our vision, where does brand consulting see itself in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years to come? This will help the brand identity development. The reason being, we want to create a brand identity that will align with them even if they evolve to something bigger in the next coming years. Now, after we are done with all the brand identity strategy thing and we have defined everything clearly, what I normally do is I send out the brand strategy to the client. This will be approved by the client because they know the brand better than you do. So some things will be tweaked, some things will be changed, and that is basically what you're aiming for when you're sending out the brand strategy to the client. Before, I used to make them with Notion, but lately I normally make them with Google Slides. After the client has approved the brand strategy and it is all okay, we move to the next step of the creative process, and that is mind mapping. Basically, mind mapping is writing down words that are closely related to the brand and will help you in coming up with the images that will help you coming up with the logo. I don't know if I'm confusing you. Mind mapping, you now write down words that are closely related to the brand. For example, these are some of the words that I came up with on the mind mapping stage. Not really coming up with, but I deducted from the brand itself and then I wrote them down. Number 1 was the brand itself. Number 2 was consulting, engineering, building, technology, modern, consult. You get the point. These words, they are related to the brand in one way or another, like closely related to the brand in one way or another. This way, I'll be having solid words that I can visualize with images, and these images will help me in coming up with the logo itself. Now, after I'm done with my mapping stage, I move to the next creative stage, and that is sketching. Now, on the sketching part, this is a part where I normally call it the depressing part of the project, because if you're not careful with this stage, you can easily give up on this career because it gives me headaches. The number of sketches that I normally come up with, it depends with the brand itself. For example, for brand consulting, it was only a few sketches and I was having the perfect idea for the logo itself. For some brands, I normally go up to 3 pages, 4 pages until I can find a blurry idea of the logo. Not even an actual idea of the logo, a blurry idea of the logo. After sketching several ideas, the next thing to understand in this particular stage is we are sketching, we are not drawing. Those are two different things. If you're sketching, you're just doing a rough idea of a thing. If you're drawing, you're aiming for perfectionism. So for us, we are sketching, just putting out our ideas. This is where I use my pencil and paper because this gives me the creative freedom whereby I can alter, I can do all the rubbish that I'm having in my mind until my mind is empty. Now, after I'm done sketching and I have a vivid idea that I want to vectorize, I move to the next process, which is vectorizing, or in simple terms, making the digital format of the sketch. In the vectorizing stage, this is where now you come and try and perfect the logo itself. Remember, there's nothing which is perfect. So here you try and perfect the logo as much as you can, because this is where the final output of the logo comes in. And even most of the times, you normally find that even the sketch doesn't come out as the logo itself, because you might have sketched something. The moment you go into the vectorizing stage, you find another way of representing that sketch, and then the sketch ends up not being the actual logo. So it is very much okay if the sketch doesn't come out as the real logo for the brand itself. Now, for the logo itself, as you might notice, it is having the letter B, which represents the brand name, which is Brain, and then it is having an arrow creatively integrated. And this is one of my most creative logos that I've ever come up with, like one of them, because remember, I have done less sketches on this, but I have come up with one of the most creative logos I've ever come up with. So it doesn't really depend the number of sketches that you come up with. It just depends with the project itself and how your mindset is. After I vectorized the logo and I was done with it, I was like, this is now the logo that really represents the brand in the best way. I go now for the first presentation. Here, it is strictly a virtual meeting. Strictly a virtual meeting. The reason being, I get to explain every small detail on the logo itself. You know, as designers, we normally make some things and then you find that you have created some details that you just want to explain to someone. Like, if you explain this thing to someone, they'll get it and they'll be like, oh, that is so creative of you. Like, you just want that kind of a feeling. And this is just one of the reasons why I normally do it on a virtual meeting. Some of the other reason is you get to answer the questions that the client has immediately. Like, for example, the client will be like, why is the logo looking this way? Why is it inclining on this way? You can be able to answer those questions immediately. Like, you can be able to answer those questions directly. Now, one thing to note is these virtual meetings doesn't mean that the client will make decisions on those meetings. After you have presented, the client doesn't have to make the decision on that particular meeting unless the client is already satisfied with the logo and he tells you, I have no need of looking at it again. I am sure that is what we're going with. What I normally do is, after presenting the logo and explaining everything on that particular PDF, I normally take the responsibility of sending the PDF to the client after the meeting. Then I tell them, at your own time, look at the logo, digest it, and then you can give me the feedback after that. Trying to force the client to approve the logo on the call is not the best thing to do. Also, the other thing to note on this particular process, the client can approve the logo or the client can give some changes on the logo. Always take the client's feedback positively, unless the client is giving a lot of revisions and all that. But if you've gotten yourself a high value client, always take that feedback positively and embrace it. Now, for this particular logo, it was approved the way it was. There was no changes. There was no like, oh, tweak this and tweak this. They were like, this is what we are going with, and it is very much okay. So I didn't have that struggle of changing anything else. It was perfect the way it was. As I have said, it is one of my most creative logos that I've ever created. After the client approved the logo, we move to the next stage, which is the coloring stage. You may ask me, why are you presenting the logo in black and white? The reason being, some of the logos, when presented in colors, they tend to be appealing. But when the colors are stripped off, they just become so very weird. But it varies from project to project. Some projects I normally present all of them together because the client already has the specific colors that should be used. Some projects I normally present black and white so that the client can approve the logo first of all before we move to the next stage. Now, when it comes to choosing the color palettes for the brand, make sure that you don't just pick colors from anywhere and then you conclude this is the color palette for this particular brand. Make sure you understand more about the brand, and this comes from the stages that you have gone through, the strategy, the mind mapping and all that. That will guide you in terms of which color does really represent the brand that you're working on. For brand consulting, these were the colors that represented the brand in the best way, and as you can see, they're having meaning to each particular color. It is not just because it looks good, but it carries the values, the missions, and everything that the brand really want to communicate out there. After my client approved the colors and we were good to go, the next step that I took was creating now the rest of the brand assets. That includes the brand pattern, the other brand elements like the letterhead, the business card, and those kind of things, the mockups, which are very much essential, and also not forgetting the brand guidelines, which is a very much important document when it comes to the brand identity designs. Now, when it comes to creating these assets, this is where I enjoy because First of all, I have the logo ready, I have the colors ready. So it is now combining them and making them look in the best way possible. So in this particular stage, this is where I enjoy the project, like the place where I enjoy the project the most, because it is now creating the visual elements for the brand itself. That is the best part for the project. Now, after I am done creating all that and enjoying myself, now it is time to enjoy it with the client. This is where I organize another presentation, strictly a virtual meeting. The reason being, I just want to see the joy from the client. My main reason, okay? That is my main reason. The other reasons is like you get to answer the question that the client might be having and all that. But my main reason, I want to see that joy lightening up the client's face. Now, in this particular virtual meeting, I get to explain to the client everything about the brand, the rules on the brand guidelines, how the brand should be applied in real life, how the brand should not be applied, how the logo should be used in the proper way, how the logo should not be misused. And just like the logo design, whereby I send over the PDF, I also do the same thing with this one, whereby I send over the PDF to the client so that they can have a look at it pole pole, and they make sure that everything is okay before we move on to the next stage. In this stage also, note that there might be changes whereby the client will be like, okay, can you add me a mock-up of a certain t-shirt, or okay, can you adjust this and that? So there might be changes. But for this particular project, there were no particular changes on the brand guideline itself and the presentation. So we were good to go. The next step that I took, or that I normally take, is now packing up the assets, okay? Exporting the logos in the proper manner, making sure that the logo has the black, white, and the full color version, making sure that the PDF, SVG, PNG, and all that is well packed and it is well labeled so that the client can have an easier time when accessing. More especially when it comes to the logo, I normally give out 4 logo variations: the main logo, secondary, submark, and favicon. And all these logos, they should be having the black and white, the full color, and the partial color. They should be having the PDF, SVG, PNG, and JPEG format. So you find that there are so many files to be given out. If you don't name them correctly, the client will be having so much trouble when they want to use the logo itself. And by the way, right now I don't like start packing it from scratch. I have a template for file arrangement whereby I just go to the template and then rename the template. For example, for brand consulting, I just rename the template to brand consulting brand identity. And then inside, there are very much organized files that should contain each and every asset for the brand. So right now, I'm not having that much trouble of creating them from scratch. Now, after I'm done packing the assets for the brand and they're all good to go, I now take them and upload them to my Google Drive. I normally use Google Drive for file transfer to the client because it is just convenient. After uploading the files on my Google Drive, it is now time to organize the offboarding meeting, also strictly a virtual meeting. The reason why I normally organize a virtual meeting is, in this particular meeting, I get to explain to the clients how the files are arranged and how they can access different various files. For example, if it is the logo, I get to show them, okay, the logo has these and these formats, they have these and these sub-files inside, and this is how you can access them. If you want to use them, you should download them and not save them. Just making sure that they are equipped with the proper information when they are going to apply their new brand identity design. Remember, we don't want you designing the brand identity, and then when the client goes to apply the brand identity design, they just do their own things because you didn't explain it properly. So I normally make sure to detail everything. And then I tell them, if you're having any kind of trouble, make sure to reach out to me. I'll be able to answer your questions. Also on the offboarding meeting, this is whereby I make it clear that, okay, we are done with the project and it is now time to make the second payment, whereby I will forward the invoice after the meeting. After you have made the payment, I will hand over the files to you through your email. Also on this meeting, I just get to recap the moment that we were having when designing the brand identity itself, and just showing the client that I really appreciate the opportunity, and if they are having any other projects in the future, they should be sure that we can collaborate on that. And now finally we are done with the project and the client is happy. I am happy because I've gotten some cheddars. The client is now happy because they have made some big investment on their brand, and that for sure is going to bring returns. So if you're seeing me for the first time and you're wondering, okay, who is this guy coming to advise us? Yeah, ni nani? Najua Kenyans, we normally have that tendency of kwani wewe ni nani unakuja kutu advise. If you don't know me, I am Peva Davis, a self-taught brand designer based in Kenya, obviously. And if you're wondering to know more about my journey in the brand identity space, I have a well-documented TikTok account which has all my transformations since I started with my first laptop until where I am right now. I'll make sure to leave a link of my TikTok account on the description. Go there and check out who this guy is. If you have found this helpful and valuable, make sure to subscribe, man. We are on, 20 subscribers. Just make sure to subscribe because this kind of content in the Kenyan space, I have not seen. If you want to challenge me, just share with me a YouTube channel which brings out this kind of brand identity content. I'll make sure to follow that person. But to be honest, I've not seen in the Kenyan space this kind of content. So make sure to show your support by subscribing and liking so that we can make more of this content. Also, leave your comment in what you think we can improve in terms of the video itself or what more you want to see in the brand identity field. Thank you very much.